Okay, we are going to call this June 2nd workshop of the Martin County School Board to order. If you'd please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, Ms. Helvey, would you call the roll, please?
Yes, Mrs. Powers.
Here.
Dr. Moriarty.
Here.
Mrs. Pritchett.
Here.
Mrs. Roberts.
Here.
And Mrs. Russell.
Here.
Okay, Dr. Moriarty, you had something you wanted to share?
Yes, thank you, Chair Powers.
Of course.
It's that time of the year, unfortunately, where we lose some great people, and our emails are often blown up with non-renewals and stories of people who are upset about that. So I wanted to publicly put it out here to Mr. Raymond. Jeff, thank you. To kind of walk us through a little bit of the generic process. Obviously, you can't get into any specifics, but because we get a lot of emails about people who might be unhappy or maybe not understanding how things work with annual contracts. So I want to know, can you shed a little bit of light on this for the public so that they can maybe understand this a little bit more in when these tough decisions have to be made?
Yes. Good evening. For the record, Jeff Raymond, Executive Director of Talent Acquisition and HR Operations. It's a great question that I am asked frequently from teammates who are wondering, what did I do wrong? And what I will share with you, generically speaking, is first I would share, I think if you were to ask any organization to comment, they would typically say we don't comment on personnel decisions. And that is to protect future liability for the organization. But with that, we're talking about teammates and humans who are upset and want answers. So what I typically share in a generic sense is there's a variety of reasons why a principal or a supervisor opts to non-renew a contract. The first thing I would distinguish is the difference between a termination and a non-renewal. Starting in July of 2011, in the state of Florida, teachers could only earn an annual contract, which means we're guaranteeing you employment for 1 year. At the end of that contract, the principal has to consider several factors. Sometimes the school may earn fewer teachers for the upcoming year. That could be a reason someone gets non-renewed. They've done nothing wrong. If you look to our south, I believe Broward County has a lot of great employees who are not coming back, who did nothing wrong. They just earn fewer employees. Sometimes teachers may have a certification issue. They're not eligible to do the job any longer if you're not certified, if they haven't done their ESOL endorsements, their reading endorsements. There are times there are performance issues. We look at student data, performance data. We don't talk publicly about discipline matters, but all of these factors go into a principal making a decision. The board is asked to approve a staffing plan. This year, example, we have, I believe, 2 fewer assistant principal positions in the Martin County School District because we didn't earn enough FTE. So when I sit across from a teammate who's like, what did I do wrong? The answer is often nothing. It's just that your annual contract has expired and there is a reason why we don't have a place for you. From the HR land, I make every effort to work with principals that if there's a teammate that is an all-star and they're doing great things, we're gonna help you find another position in the Martin County School District. You are allowed to apply for another position, to transfer to another position. But the hardest piece is hearing that you're not coming back and we can't give you a reason. And that would be my general 30,000-foot view of when we have to inform teammates as to why they're not coming back and they want the reason. You won't find a school district in Florida that would share the reason to protect the organization, but it is an annual contract that has expired.
Oh, thank you so much, Jeff, for that transparency. I think he explained it really well, just so the public knows. And when they email us, asking us for answers, we can't discuss publicly what happened with a certain employee, but hopefully that will guide them at least in the general process. So I appreciate you taking the time to go over that with us.
Yeah, you're welcome, and you can also steer them to me, and I can always give that general overview if they're not tuning in tonight to today's meeting.
Thank you.
And I would just add to that the board is not responsible for hiring or even during that contract process. That is not our role as school board members. That is the superintendent. Obviously, if there's a termination, we typically would hear if there was an appeal to that, but our role is not to hire. It's the superintendent's role to do that, and really, we only step in if the superintendent makes a choice that a person's not qualified. So really and truly, that's the only time we should even be stepping into those personnel matters. But yeah, it's a tough time of year, I know. And it's a tough time across the state of Florida. Okay, thank you for that. Moving on, we have public comment. Do we have any public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll move right into our district presentations. Mr. Raymond, the IRSC Para to Teacher Program.
All right, well, good evening again from a closer seat in the room. Really just want to spend a few minutes with you. Some of you are here when the board invested about $255,000 in the Para to Teacher program with a company called Bloomboard. At a board meeting, we recognized some of our graduates. At a high school graduation ceremony, we recognized some of those graduates. And tonight, I just wanted to present an alternative option that is contract-free, significantly cheaper, and supporting our local college of Indian River State College. So expanding the teacher pipeline is the name of the presentation. I was actually asked to share this, I think, back in April, but there were a few calendar conflicts. But to the first slide, to grow our own teachers is a great opportunity. Paraprofessionals have firsthand lens into the classroom every single day, so they're actually getting on-the-job training. The first bullet of special education and elementary remaining our #1 gap. We send the board our instructional vacancies every Monday. 70% of our vacancies are ESE and elementary. So that's kind of why we want to target this area to grow our own from people who are in the classrooms. And so I'll go on. So from the history lesson in 2023, as I alluded to, the board invested $255,000. That would have afforded you the opportunity to essentially pay the tuition. The only way to get in the program is you have to have had an associate's degree. So we're paying for the second 2 years of college. So for the grand total of $255,000, the max number was 15 paraprofessionals could have become a teacher. That was the investment that was made. There's some lesson learned in that program that I would encourage you to think about if we do something different. So only 12 of the 15 completed the program. So if all 15 completed the program, it would have been about $17,000 per para. That would have been the investment. But when the 3 didn't, we don't recoup the money. It's sort of like you recoup it if you sign another contract with Bloomboard. It's like a future cruise credit. They're great, but you have to go back on the cruise line to use it. So that model, they were ahead of their time. Bloomboard was getting a lot of business in the state of Florida because they were the concierge that did all the work to set something up with a college who would let paras get credit for their work during the day and earn their degree. So ahead of their time, it was a great investment at the time, but it could only get us 15. So On this slide here, when I talk about a partnership, I just want to emphasize, like, there's no contract to sign. What I'm sharing with you is just what's available from our partners at IRSC. Currently, if you didn't know, they just received a grant earlier this year where anyone who's an ESE paraprofessional who has an associate's degree can earn a free bachelor's degree. So from the HR side, we have pushed this out to all of our paras that are ESE paras. You have the opportunity to get a free bachelor's degree in education. In this one, it's specifically for special education for that particular one. So that's a no-cost, no-brainer. And it's up to HR to continue to promote it. I think it's also a recruitment tool. Come be a paraprofessional in the Martin County School District, and you can become a teacher too. But we also have ESOL paraprofessionals and basic paraprofessionals. At max, if any one of these paraprofessionals that we approve for a program, at max the cost is $7,500 per candidate versus the 17 that I showed you on the prior slide. And they offer the same 2 degrees, elementary or ESE. IRSC's degrees come with reading endorsement and ESOL endorsement. Sometimes you see a lot of names on our out of field list. They're gonna graduate with these endorsements. In my call with IRSC, many of our paras qualify for financial aid. So $7,500 is the max number a para would pay if we invested in them to go to IRSC to become a teacher. There is no contract. There would just be an agreement if you wanted to do something in-house, we could fund it. This is just a visual to probably summarize what I just said, that same $255,000. If you wanted to invest that much, at a minimum could get us 34 paras to teachers. We wouldn't need to do that much. You could do 10 of them, whatever you wanted. But just to kind of give you a visual as to the comparison of the 2 programs. Just another visual how much more cost-effective IRSC versus Bloomberg. The advantages of staying local, obviously we could double the output, lower the cost. Now, reducing the financial risk to the district would be up to the board to decide. That old model was, hey, we're paying the bill before you, and if you don't finish it, guess what? Martin County School District was on the hook, or we had to re-sign with Bloom Board. So one of the things to consider is, would the new model, should you choose to go this route, be finish the program, I reimburse you at 100%. Because the lesson learned was some people started the program, did some of the program, but when they leave, it's very challenging to recoup money from an employee who leaves us. So just something to ponder. Obviously, a local partnership is great in building our pipeline contract-free. So I believe this is my final slide before questions. The considerations, if this is something the board wants to do again, we could continue prioritizing ESE in elementary, 70% of our current vacancies, becoming a leader in the Grow Your Own program, maximizing our investment because we get more, and then the consideration is to consider what would that financial structure look like so we're not losing on any investments. And that is my 5-minute or less overview of what could be a partnership with IRSC. And I welcome your questions at this time or down the road.
Questions from the board? Did you push your button?
I did.
It's not showing on mine. Oh, sorry. Ms. Roberts is first.
I think it goes from the bottom up, but go ahead.
It does?
Yeah.
No, it doesn't. Ms. Roberts, go ahead.
Sure. So do we have an active contract with Bloomberg right now?
It expired, so we're under no obligation to
Okay.
continue.
And the 7,500, is that for 2 years?
2
of work?
years. Yep, I priced it out. How much would it cost for a college student who has an associate's degree to earn the final 2 years? $7,500 was the max number.
Okay. And in this, the way you're talking about it, we would reimburse them when they finish, which means we would be looking, so in the Bloomberg model, there was no reimbursement. We were just paying it.
Correct.
In this case, we would have the ability to either pay it ahead like we did with Bloomberg, or we could reimburse them at the end, knowing that, and I think that probably some of the interest that we got with Bloomberg was because they weren't out of pocket anything.
Correct.
And they weren't waiting for something to come back. And so, do we have people in the pipeline now
I
that
get,
are?
no, there's no one, I get inquiries every day, are you doing a para-to-teacher program? And I shared that the first cohort completed. Are you an ESE para? Because if so, there's a program for you right now with IRSC. Will there be interest? Yes, there would be.
And so when you're saying it's a 255,000, it's really, that would really cover 2 years of payments.
Oh, if you chose, I wanted to just illustrate the prior contract, the investment was $255,000, paying for 2 years of schooling for 15 paras. If you invested that same amount of money, if you just earmarked it and we see what we want to use, you could net at least 34 paras.
Right, but
For 2
what
years
that
of
would mean
schooling.
is, we would have a cohort that would be going the next 2 years, and we would have to re-up to have another cohort that was going,
Correct.
correct? So you wouldn't have a year with nobody, and then a year with 34, and then a year with nobody, and a year with 34.
Right, and you could decide, let's do 15 one year, 15 the next. And to me, I think the upside is there's zero contract. It's just how do you want to invest locally? Like, this is their offer to anyone who wants 2 years of schooling.
And we would just be doing the promoting of it. And I think, so I would be interested in something coming from the superintendent and I would be interested in paying up front for them so that we're not looking for a para to come out of their pocket. So if it's $7,500, it's really $3,750 per year.
Correct.
So then if they dropped out of the program, we would just be into that person for $3,750, not for the whole 17 that we were
Correct.
with Bloomberg. But that's what I would be interested in. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Pritchett?
So I love this, but I want you to tell me if you see any downside to it at all.
Zero downside, only
That's
upside.
the answer I wanted.
Yeah, upside from our friends at IRSC, upside for our paras.
I think
You were
it's
at the
brilliant.
graduation, you saw the difference it made for their families,
Yes.
for them.
Watching them
Pipeline.
was amazing.
Yeah, so firm believer of IRSC's education. I
Yeah.
see zero downside.
I am in 100% favor of this.
Dr. Moriarty?
So do we have any kind of a credit with this Bloom board?
I use the analogy of like it's a future cruise credit. Yeah, if we want to re-up with Bloomboard, they're like the exclusive provider of a college experience at Lake Erie College in Paynesville, Ohio. So no, we don't. We have a credit if we sign a new contract with them.
So we'd have to sign like, we
Sign a
can't
new
just like,
contract at like 17,000 per para.
Right,
And
we
it
can't
just
just-
doesn't seem.
we can't send like the 3 that dropped, we can't send like 3 there and the rest to IRSC and use up that credit, or
There
no?
could be the potential to do something like that, and I will pursue that to see if we could go back to Lake Erie. The contract expired, and their salesmanship is to re-up.
Okay, because I don't want to re-up the whole thing, but if there's
I
some
will
way to,
pursue the
if there's a
future
way to use
credit.
up that cruise credit on just the
Yes.
short cruise,
Understood.
let's take the short cruise and have everyone else on the long cruise, would be one thing. And then I'm just curious, the 3 that dropped, was it academic issues or?
Is the challenge of being a full-time para, a full-time parent, and keeping up with academics. So it was too much for them.
Okay.
And we tried, we had mentors and coaches. And so they decided it wasn't for them.
Okay, but I do like your angle as well. I would agree with the rest of the board, with the IRSC, and making us our grow-at-home workforce development. That is really appealing to me, so appreciate that.
I'll get back to you on that credit.
So I just have a couple of comments. Are we going to require a contract with the teachers that participate in this program? But do we already have a degree program where we reimburse employees for
So we
seeking?
have 2 things. The first thing is the paras that joined the first program signed an MOU that did say that they are financially responsible to pay if they were to leave. They're also committing to, the prior MOU was to stay in the Martin County School District for 5 years. So we would bring something to you to say, hey, what do you want this MOU to say? To this, can you repeat the second question? Because I forgot. You asked two things. One was there a contract? And then what was the second part?
I think that was pretty much it, but I'm curious about too, I mean, I don't think we should pay $3,500 upfront, or $3,750, I think, because at IRSC is a little different, because
I know what
every,
your question was.
every student someone may take 3 classes, someone may take 2 classes. I think we should reimburse by semester.
Yeah, I think so.
There should be no upfront, so it should be by semester throughout the year, but also based on the number of classes that they take, obviously. Because some people aren't going, are they committing to complete their bachelor's degree in 2 years? Or are we giving them a longer?
Yeah, the last MOU gave them 2 to 3 years to complete. And the
Okay.
other part of the question is, do we currently have a reimbursement program
Yeah.
for tuition?
Oh, yeah,
Currently, we have an opportunity to pay 2/3 of the cost of a course at IRSC per semester while funds are available. That's just for anyone in the district.
Right.
It's a current option. So
Okay.
this would be
This would be
specific to this
100%.
group. And yeah, you could tier it like, we'll pay this semester up front. You got to complete it, but we're not investing. I think the Bloom Board error was we invested all 2 years upfront, and that's where the risk came in.
so my other question would be books.
It's included. The 7,500 was books and fees
Okay.
included per the quote from IRSC.
Okay,
Because with Bloom Board, Lake Erie College, we paid for everything except maybe their final transcript.
okay. And then, honestly, I think that if we're using this as a recruiting tool, if they complete it within 2 years, I feel like we should give them some sort of bonus if they come to the school district, and I don't know what that amount is, maybe it's $1,000, or that they come to the Martin County School District, they commit to work, and here's your bonus for doing that. We invested in you, no, here you go, you're committed for, now you sign a contract to stay with us.
I personally love it from a recruitment standpoint. You're entering as a para, we're investing you to become a teacher, and not only will you have a job, but maybe there's a bonus. So really all for you to decide.
I guess just looking at the, what that cost would be, and obviously, I think we should set parameters around it. So I think it should be specifically for those paras that are completing their degree in 2 years. That incentivizes them to complete their degree timely, not spread it out too much. And if they do that, then they get the bonus and, potentially are hired by the Martin County School District.
I guess we will bring maybe a proposal to you and then tweak it from there, based upon your input.
Ms. Roberts, did you have something?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay. Yeah, and I really think we should pay upfront, just by semester, just because I think that we will encounter people that have that financial barrier that would prevent them from being able to complete the course. How many hours per semester? Do you know what it is to complete? Like, is there
It's
some,
pretty much
is it 15?
15 each
'Cause that's a
semester, a
lot.
total of another 60 credits.
So we would give them 6 semesters, so summer, fall, spring, summer, fall, spring? Like, how
Well,
would we?
A total of, I guess how they want to do it, but it's a total of 60 college credits. And
Yeah.
I'm sure they could break it up differently, but however you want it framed, like if it's traditional semesters, fall, spring,
Because 15 credit hours working full-time and having a family is a lot.
yeah. So we can present different tiers for how to approach it, knowing that it is a lot. IRSC is willing to approach this model similarly to Lake Erie College, giving the paras an opportunity to earn credit for coursework done while they're being a para, because that was something that was very appetizing with Bloom Board. So
Right.
when we brought this to IRSC's attention, like, can you do something comparable, like a portfolio model? They are working towards that.
Okay. So when will we know what the final program looks
Oh,
like?
I think I probably have a meeting with Mr. Main coming up soon, and we'll share a proposal based upon all the things you're asking for. And then do we bring it back at a board meeting or, you know, to let you see it and tweak it? So
Yeah, we should probably get it sooner rather than later because.
yeah, if we could start it for the new year, that would be
the new,
phenomenal.
we
And-
would want it to start probably
Yeah.
in August.
Okay, well, it'll be a priority, and we'll send you something soon.
Ms. Roberts?
Quite frankly, I'm okay with 3 years, figuring that instead of doing 15 credit hours a year for 2 years while you're working full-time, if you did 10, 10, and 10.
And that might be,
It might
the Lake
be.
Erie agreement said 2 to 3 years, and
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
probably
I
gave the
think 3
option
years
of
is more
the
reasonable too.
para.
If you don't have kids, I think if you don't have a family, I think you can probably do it into with summers, but I think it's hard.
You know, if you're comfortable, we could rate it 2 to 3 years.
Well, and I'm also, well, the other question, not question, but comment is what kind of supports will we as a school district give them as students in
I would ask that we assign them mentors the same way we did with Bloomboard. So that would be a part of a financial package we would share with you. It would be
Okay.
the same rate as a Martin mentor. So we'll build that into a proposal.
perfect. Sounds wonderful.
All right, my pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, moving on, the excitement of the day, the overview of our proposed budget for 26-27. Everybody has been on pins and needles. So Carter, could you start off just letting the public know kind of what happened today in the special session and when all of those things, like kind of a timeline, the November ballot initiative, and then when it would go into effect, if it passes?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, other board members, superintendent, and community. The information that I'm going to relay is based on an update that we received this afternoon at 1:30. Both chambers of the House passed committee substitute House Joint Resolution 1F, the Senate by a vote of 30-9, the House by a vote of 75-26. Therefore, in November of this year, voters of the state of Florida will be asked to pass a constitutional amendment which phases in an increase in the homestead exemption. Based on the proposals, pleased to announce that during the legislative process, that both chambers made amendments to exempt school districts from the homestead increase. At the same time, however, that's good news for us, but for those counties, municipalities that are not exempted, we may end up feeling some downstream effects at some point. We do, for example, have an SRO contract with our local sheriff, and if his revenues are reduced somewhat, then his share may ultimately decrease. So those are things that we're going to have to deal with down the road should this constitutional amendment pass. But I'm pleased to report that the school district, there was a carve-out made for school districts, so we'll be exempted from that.
Thank you.
So moving on to today's budget workshop. My task today is to provide an update of the fiscal year 26-27 budget outlook, some of the funding changes, enrollment trends, and just some key financial considerations impacting our district budget planning for the fiscal year 26-27. As you alluded to, the special session was called by the governor to consider property taxes and the various exemptions that were proposed. However, the FEFP budget, which is the subject of this workshop, That passed on Friday, May the 29th, last Friday, after the mandatory 72-hour cooling off period. So right now, as you can see on the slide, we're pointing to the dollars because we now have a proposed budget for fiscal 26-27. Coming out of that process, I just wanted to highlight a few things. The conference summary that you're seeing on your screen, if you were to pull up any state report, it would not match. And the reason is, internally, what we try to do is strip out, if you will, the impact of the vouchers in the budget to see exactly what we're looking at a local level with respect to traditional public schools and charter schools. So just to highlight a few takeaways from the presentation in front of you, year over year, we're basically looking at flat funding of $172 million. You can see that at the bottom of the slide. State funding has increased by $9.4 million, while the local share has decreased by about $9.3 million, primarily driven by, you can see the decrease in the required local effort, which is about 0.36 mils or 11.8%, even although the tax value went up an average of 3.94%. We also are predicting a weighted FTE drop of about 100 going into the year. I will present some slides that show our trend data over the last several years that show our decline in the traditional public school sector. And at the end of the day, the per student funding increase amounts to about $33 per FTE. As we go through the legislative session, I'd like to just put up this slide to kind of show the governor's budget is typically the largest proposal, but it really just gives general direction and an indication of the priorities that the governor has with respect to the FEFP funding. However, the actual budget is not final until passed by both chambers and conferenced. So as you can see in the far right bar, you'll see $172.398 million. Moving on to our FTE, looking at, and again, we've been tracking this for several years, going back to October, actually before October of 2023, but we just chose to show these last several years. In the yellow bars, where I've highlighted, we compare the October of last year to the February of this year. You can see that the traditional public schools, including virtual, had a decrease of about 80 unweighted FTE. Charters about 9, and scholarships a slight adjustment of 11. So overall, the district as a whole lost about 77.42 FTE. On the next slide is just a graphical representation going back all the way to February of 2013-14. And the green numbers on top of the bar show the years in which we actually had some growth. So the last time the district's FTE, which excluded at that time McKay scholarships, looking at the traditional public school only, the last time we grew in FTE was 2016-17, approximately 10 years ago. So you can see I've done some sort of regression line, and you can see today we're at 15,823.23. As is also customary, we tried to divide and show you the various impacts by elementary, middle, high school, and special programs, comparing October of 2025 to February of 2026. The largest increase, which was minor, it was at Seawind Elementary of 4.23 FTE, and Port Salerno Elementary was your largest loss of 11.23 FTE. At the middle school level, we still continue to see decreases in FTE. Between October and February, we lost 27.45 FTE with 11.38 FTE at Hidden Oaks Middle School. At the high school, Martin County High School lost 21.64 FTE between October, which is Survey 3, the October count, and February of 21.64. And Jensen Beach High School continues to see increases as about 3.34 FTE. overall, we're down by 27.20 FTE. Virtual programs, we have not been able to report any FTE at this point for virtual programs. In the upcoming budget for this year, the superintendent has authorized two teaching allocations to try to get that off the ground, working with curriculum and instruction to design the program so we're able to take advantage of students who want to take virtual courses. On the next slide with your special programs, the largest increase was at Spectrum Academy between October of '25 and February of '26, where your largest loss was at Riverbend Academy at 1.81 FTE. Overall, your special programs grew by about 18.03 FTE. Charter schools, looking at charter schools, essentially flat at Hope Autism, and at Treasure Coast Classical Academy, they lost about 7.02 FTE. Just to note that Indiantown High School is on a upward trajectory, recording 140.36 as of the February count. And last but not least, we like to keep our tabs on the FTE that's coming through on the Family Empowerment Scholarships. You can see the dip going from 2,271 in February of 2025 down to 1,025.75 in February of 2026, the final. That is because about 1,000 of those students switched over to the Florida Tax Credit or the PEP program. So they're not taking advantage of the Family Empowerment Scholarship. With that, that concludes my overview of the 26-27 budget at this point. We do have on July the 21st a board meeting which is to advertise the budget. We will continue to make adjustments within the budget internally to bring that forward to the board, with the first public hearing and trim hearing being on July 28th at 5:05 in this room to adopt the tentative budget. Madam Chair, with that, and Superintendent, board members, I would take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Carter. Ms. Roberts?
Carter, when I'm looking at your 25-26 summary of unweighted FTE, are your updates of your final survey counts that you give me the next 3 or 4 page, not the next page right after that? Unweighted also?
Yes, everything here is
Because when
unweighted.
Okay, thanks. Because when I add those numbers, I don't get the same numbers that are on your summary sheet. So just so you're aware of that. So for example, when I'm looking at the increase, decrease for traditional, and I have 79 as the decrease,
Right?
if I add the 3 numbers, the elementary at 42, the middle at 27, and the high school at 27, I come up with higher than 79. Just so you know that. I mean, I think that your sheet, your summary sheet is the one that needs adjusting for that. And I want to focus on, because we look at October and February surveys, if I look at the survey 2 actuals from October to October to October, right?
Right.
And I look at October 23 to October 24, we were down about 80.
That's about right.
And then from October 24 to October 25, we were down about 300.
Correct.
And now it looks like from October 25, if you're giving me a number of 15,823, it looks like we would, if everybody we think is going to be there actually shows up, then I'm actually going up. But I think we're really planning to be flat. Is that what we're budgeting on, flat?
No, we projected to the state an actual decrease based on the historical trend that we have.
Okay, then I'm confused with the geographical representation for the unweighted FTE, your line, your bar graphs that show the orange and then the little bit of green at the bottom.
Right.
Because that's showing me that my final in 2026 is 15,823.
Correct.
which is higher than what my October survey is. So I think that, just so you can check those, I think that that's, and that's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pritchett, sorry, I turned you off earlier when I was trying to learn this new system.
So turning to page 12, update on final survey, special centers.
Yes.
Bear with me. I'm extracting Spectrum and Willoughby because if those students weren't at those schools, they would be at our traditional schools, wouldn't they?
Yes.
So the gains there are because they came from another traditional school in our district,
That is correct.
right?
But for survey reporting purposes, they were at that school at the time during the FTE count.
Okay, but we're not really gaining FTE from those two schools because they would have been in a traditional school and been counted there.
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I wasn't missing something. Thank you.
Dr. Moriarty?
So back to what Ms. Roberts was saying on page 7 with that graphical representation. So if that stays as is, that number would be green at 15,823, where you have that in orange.
Yes. I
It
would double-
says,
We would go up from 15,762, so let me double check that number.
so that would be the first increase we've had, it says, in a decade.
Correct.
If that were to hold, it would, that would be our first actual going up, correct?
Yes. Yes, I will double check that for you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. And the other question I had was on page 11. So we don't have anyone going through the virtual right now,
Not at this point, no.
Zero
Not
people.
Yes, sir.
but we've had people in the past, but we just don't have anybody now, is what you're
Correct,
saying.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Roberts?
So when you're looking at those, the number from the 15,762 to the 15,823, and that's going up about 60. But at the same time that it goes up about 60, usually from October to February, I believe we lost 80 students. So those are students who were here in October and then, for whatever reason, took their buckets and went somewhere else. So even though it looks like it's going up, when we start the year, we usually have that October to February piece where it jumps down.
Correct. Typically, October is your highest count, and then you would have some dropout factor affecting for February.
Thank you.
So I just have one question about, I know we still are seeing the trend in our middle schools where we're losing students in middle school. Jensen Beach High School is the anomaly in gaining students, and I would be curious to know if all of the students that requested choice were able to get into Jensen. And if they weren't, how do we make some quick changes so that we can retain those students on the Jensen Beach campus if that's the desire of the family to be there? And were they out of county? Did we lose them because to not going to another one of our public high schools? Did they go to private schools? So I just want to make sure we're capturing all of them. And I don't want, if we need to put portables or whatever we need to do on a temporary basis to, if that's where families want to be, then I think that they should be there.
I'm sorry, Mr. Maine, go ahead. I was going to say, my latest data is that we have a waiting list for Jensen Beach High School. I want to say it's 137 is the number in my head, which is why we had proposed using the impact fees to construct the building, sort of in the middle of the courtyard at Jensen Beach High School to accommodate those students who are on the waiting list to get them at that school. I do also have some information in-house that we use to track the population migration, so we can take a look at that. But I'll definitely check in with the Choice Office to see if everyone who wanted to go to Jensen, if we had enough space. I think it would be a constraint of space at this point.
Well, and I want to make sure if they are on the waiting list for Jensen, are they enrolled in another one of our high schools, or are they out of county trying to come into? Because that's really, if we're capturing them, obviously we want parents to be happy in our school system, and if that means that they would be happy at Jensen Beach High School, then that's what we should, to retain them. But I want to know, because really the impact is going to be in the number of kids that are coming into Martin County that would not have attended one of our traditional public high schools.
We'll get that data for you, Mrs. Powers.
Thank you. Any other questions? Dr. Moriarty?
I think we've talked about that before with Jansen Beach High School, though. Didn't we talk about some improvements there, Mr. Seacrest, maybe? We've talked about this before, haven't we?
Yes.
Yes, the board, Mark Seacrest, Director of Facilities and Planning, the board actually approved a master plan concept, and that's being done by the architect now, and they're reviewing Jensen Beach High School on how we can add classrooms and labs to that campus, whether it be inside the courtyard or outside the courtyard. But that's all being reviewed right now, and that's going to come forward in the future, like August, with the master plan. And they're actually reviewing Indiantown Middle School at the same time.
And what's the timeline on that for implementation?
Well, we'd have to go, once we get the master plan complete, then we have to get board approval to go out for an RFQ for the A&E and the contractor, and then that's a 9-month process to get the construction drawings done.
Gotcha.
And then it's a 2 to 3 year project to get it constructed.
So that's down the road. Ms. Powers is talking about immediate, right?
I'm talking about some portables potentially on the campus. Can we look at if there is a way to place temporary portables that wouldn't interfere with construction? That's going to be really disruptive in the middle of the courtyard to build a new building on that campus. Go ahead.
So right now, the only real estate we have is where the building needs to go. So
Yeah.
it's a really difficult discussion. And being that it's June right now, it's going to be really difficult to get portables in by August 1st. So it's a really time constraint and real estate constraint discussion. But the master plan is moving forward. We're going to know what we can add to that campus because they're doing the full code analysis to figure out, because that campus is very large. I don't know, we're pushing 400,000 square feet. So based on the code analysis, they're going to know what we can add to that campus and what location it could be in relative location to the existing buildings. So all that's being reviewed by the architect now, and he's going to be able to come back, because we showed 2 options, whether it be inside the courtyard or outside the courtyard, because the courtyard itself is very large. I mean, you can literally put a building inside there. It's going to be a matter of whether code will allow it based on the number of square feet we have there now.
Well, and my other thing that we talk about a lot is when you drive by any of our high schools during the day, because we always talk about parking problems, but the parking lots are empty because so many kids are gone. How are we utilizing the space that we do have? When during the day are classrooms empty? I think we're going to have to get away from every teacher has an assigned classroom, that they're going to be moving to a classroom if it's vacant to serve students. I think we have to start looking at it differently instead of building $30, $40 million buildings, that we should be utilizing what we have.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
what we can do is, let's say if there's a list of 134 students, if 30 of them, just using these hypothetical numbers, if 30 of them are from outside wanting to get into Jensen Beach, let the team get with the choice office. We will get with Principal Connolly through strategic scheduling. If we're able to absorb those 30 students or whatever the number ends up being, we will work to do that. And then make sure that the other students that are at the other high schools have first priority should additional seats open, if that's their school of choice. But I think through some strategic scheduling, if the number's not that high, we should be able to accommodate some additional students on the waiting list.
Perfect. Thank you. Any other questions? Ms. Roberts?
And maybe there's a way for the ones that we can't take, that we can promote the Martin virtual solution with a couple classes that they can take. Because I think some of those students, I did meet somebody who was from Port St. Lucie who did not get in, and they sent their kid to Florida virtual, was what their solution was, because they didn't want them going to a St. Lucie County school. So maybe there's a way that we could build that somehow, so we get them for part of it, and they're doing our virtual for the other part of it, and we're managed to keep it. And then the other point about the portables, I would expect it's almost impossible to get portables there for August, but knowing that the final solution isn't available for another 3 to 4 years, actually, from today, that if we started planning or looking at doing where we would put portables for the next year, so that then in August of 2027, we would have some increased capacity while we're doing the building piece there. I think that would take some of the stress off. Thanks.
Yeah, and I would really, this strategic scheduling really needs to happen. We've been talking about it for a really long time, and I know that right now, we don't, it's just, we have a lot of unused space during every period of the day. So I don't even know that we need to build new buildings to accommodate that low of a number of students yet. I don't know. Okay. All right, moving on. Thank you, Carter. We really appreciate it. Thanks for sharing the good news about the exemption of school districts from the property tax referendum that will be coming in November. All right, next up we have Deb Riley, and Guillermo, who are going to talk about our Code of Student Conduct.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Superintendent Main, board members, welcome. We're so excited to present the draft 2026-2027 Code of Student Conduct to you. We will take direction from the board on how you would like us to proceed in terms of discussion, if you want to go through all of the changes, or if you have certain items that you would like to discuss for us to give you more information.
Board members, what's your pleasure?
Go through the things that people have questions about.
Well, and give us a little view of, 50,000-foot view of, because there are a lot of changes. So kind of a little overview would be great as well.
Absolutely. So I'm going to let Mr. Orozco give you that to you, because he was our lead on this project.
Sure. Good evening, everyone, members of the board, Madam Chair, Superintendent Main. So the 50,000-foot view when it comes to the changes is we wanted to make sure that everything was rooted when it came to state statute, board policy. A lot of the rationale that you see for a lot of the changes are based on that. And then there's also feedback from school sites and parents regarding some of the language that is used that can be at times confusing, so that there's some clarity when it comes to that. We're also attempting to have consistency across the board when it comes to our schools by grade level. In other words, elementary, middle school, and high school when it comes to consequences. So that's why there's an addition of the discipline matrix that's there at the end of the Code of Conduct.
Okay, specific questions from the board? Was that enough of an overview for you, Dr. Moriarty? Specific questions from the board? Ms. Roberts.
Hi, and thank you. I appreciate the way that it looks. I appreciate the consequence piece, and I appreciate the focus on classroom behavior. I know that a lot of the comments I've been getting during the year are from parents who have compliant students that feel that their child's educational environment is being disrupted by other students and not being very happy with that. So that being said, so when I start at the beginning, your post, whatever we call these, the A, B, C, V or something. I think that I talked to Mr. Shazo about maybe making those a little bit less wordy and more grabbing. But then I go to page 8. On page 8, when you talk about student attendance, in the first paragraph, you're talking about progressive interventions will be initiated by the MTSS problem-solving team. Because we also have consequences for attendance now, so everything we have now, we have interventions and we have consequences, is what I'm reading in your, the document that you've created. So I think besides saying that the progressive interventions will be initiated by the MTSS problem-solving team, I think we need some language that talks about the consequences. And I'm hoping that, that we will be applying the consequences consistently to whether it's by school, whether it's by student, whatever it is, because I think that when we're looking at those, and I think that's where the matrix really comes and helps, but I think there, we can add a sentence in there about that. I also think, I was talking to the superintendent today about in your matrix where you're talking about tardiness and realizing that tardiness is different for elementary, middle, and high school, but tardiness in elementary is usually a parent issue. But at some point, I think the tardinesses, so many tardinesses is the same as an absence, you know, is the same. So that kind of thinking, because it looked like in your matrix for tardiness, it was the, well, we're going to tell you you were tardy and please don't do it again. Well, we're going to tell you you're tardy, please don't do it again. Well, we're going to tell you you're tardy, please don't do it again. And I think that we need to figure something else about that. If I keep going, I think it's page 13, the level 1 infractions, corrective interventions, and discipline consequences. I think in all your consequences for level 1, 2, 3, and 4, you should have a bullet that is drawing attention to the fact that if you're a parent, whether you're in-county or an out-of-county parent, and you have been awarded a seat at a school based on choice, that one of the consequences that you may be facing is that you will lose your choice seat. So that if I'm a student who is zoned for Felix and I have choiced to Bessie Creek, but I repeatedly am doing infractions, that I run the risk of, I asked to be at Bessie, you know, and if my problem is getting to school on time or whatever it is, if I was back at my home school, I would have a bus I could ride, you know. But I mean, I think that in a parent asking for something, there's a level of responsibility that needs to come with that if you're asking for it, you stand to lose that. And that being said, I'm sure that you all have the ability to, if you have a student who has disruptive level 2 or level 3 behavior repeatedly, et cetera, wherever they come from, we do have the ability through choice of saying, you're disrupting our learning environment, you need to go back to wherever it was that you are supposed to be. If that happens to be out of county, you're going back out of county, but it isn't fair to the students that are in the classroom for their learning experience to be disrupted by somebody else in the classroom. On the next page, which I guess would be page 14, where you have administrative procedures, in all of your levels of administrative procedures, you talk about the corrective interventions being documented. I think the consequences ought to also be documented so that you'll get an accurate view of what you have. And on page 15, I believe, is level 2, infractions and corrective interventions. I think that also needs the choice thing. And I believe one of the consequences that you have is that you might have to pay for your laptop if you have laptop damages, right? So I kind of feel that we should be telling them that somewhere, both in the matrix and in the consequence piece, that if this is happening, there's retribution and you have to pay for it. think it's on the next page, that we talk about may result in disciplinary action and a fee for repair or replacement of the device on number 17. On number 19 for malicious, or not, it's no longer malicious acts, now it's disrespect. When you talk about any act or acts, including oral or written communication with or without provocation by a student or group that according to social norms causes humiliation, shame, embarrassment, or is demeaning, I personally feel you should add the word disruption into that. I don't know how the rest of the board feels about that, but I think that disruption is something. They all nodded their heads, so. No, these three down here nodded their heads. Brian did not nod his head. He was not interested in adding disruption, and I don't know if Amy is or not. The next page, which talks about possession of contraband, also in the administrative procedure, I think needs a consequence piece. On the level 4, I don't know what page it is, but you have infractions and corrective interventions. I think you need a tab that says that the consequences is an expulsion recommendation, because that is the consequence of a level 4. So I think that's missing there.
And to your point, and I think we need to address it again, is when we've talked about this quite a bit about expulsions, and when a student is recommended for expulsion, that I don't feel like that at that point they've done something so egregious that they will be removed from our school district, that it becomes a negotiating tool. If we're going to, if a principal if a child or a student commits something that is an expellable offense, then it should come to the board for an expulsion hearing. I think that oftentimes it's used kind of as a bargaining tool for parents. It's like, oh yeah, well, if you agree to withdraw your student, or it's like we need to address the problem so that it's on the student's record if the student is found guilty of an expellable offense. Ms. Roberts, carry on. Oh, Ms.
Roberts,
Pritchett,
can I
did
ask
you
a
have
clarifying
something?
Oh, I
question?
thought Ms. Roberts was done.
No.
Could I ask a clarifying question for you? On level 4, under
Yes,
the
ma'am.
corrective actions, we do have recommendation for expulsion. Do you want those separated out into 2 separate bullets so that it doesn't get lost in the
pages
paragraph?
so the pages I'm
Page
looking at
23.
have, yeah, which number is it with these other numbers? Is it page 71? Does it look like this? Yes. So it's page 23. When I look at page 23, I see the infractions on the left, I see the interventions on the right, but unlike level 1, 2, and 3, I don't see a thing that says disciplinary consequences. Do you understand? So it,
Understood. Thank you.
yeah. Hang on, I think it's up to 81. On your, maybe 33? Maybe page 33? Procedures for disciplinary alternative educational placement? 33?
Alternative educational
Yeah.
That is page 32.
32. Just so I understand this correctly, on page 32, step 1 is there's an investigation. Step 2, the principal or the designee can recommend that they be placed at an alternative school. But that's just any other school. That's like, is that correct? Alternative educational placement, because step 3 is a recommendation to a non-traditional school placement. So is step 2 a traditional school placement and step 3 a non-traditional, or what does that?
Yeah, so I can see there that we did not strike through the non-traditional school wording on step 3, so we'll make sure that we do that. But to answer your question, whenever a school recommends alternative placement, it is just that, alternative placement, and then student services decides whether it's going to be at a non-traditional school or a traditional school.
Okay, so that step 3 would not say non-traditional, it would just say alternative school placement, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Hang on. In your matrices, so I'm starting with the elementary school discipline matrix that starts with disrespect for others' property. When I get to the 5th referral for that, do you mean that my 5th referral now goes to the level 2 chart? Or it says from level 1, but do you really mean that I now go to level 2? Is that what you're trying to tell me? So I disrespect somebody. First time I get a verbal warning and you call my mother. Second time I get a verbal warning and you call my mother. Third time I get a timeout. Fourth time I get a lunch detention. The 5th time, I think I'm going to a level 2 defiance and insubordination, correct?
Yes, that's correct. At that point, the behavior escalates to defiance, which would be a level 2, and that'll have a separate matrix from a typical defiance that may be different, that is not rooted from level 1.
Right, so 2 pages later, I see that. I see a defiance insubordination from level 1 and a defiance insubordination. But I think we need to say somewhere that it's the matrix, either on whatever page it is, or on the level 2 matrix. You know, because it kind of, I don't know where I am when I'm reading that otherwise. That one and the one underneath it. The ID violation for elementary doesn't reset every quarter. I noticed that high school and middle school resets, but elementary does not reset? Is that correct? Is that intentional?
Yeah, so because the consequence in and of itself, or the action that's taken is the same across the board, it doesn't necessarily reset. It would reset for middle school and high school because they would reset the consequence that would be given once it resets at the quarter. So a student at the elementary level may forget their ID for, say, for example, the 6th time. The consequence is not going to be different. It would just be a replacement of the ID, where, for example, middle school and high school, if it's the 5th time that it's happened, you would get a consequence for that. But then if it resets at the quarter and it is now truly your 6th time, but your 1st time now because it reset at the quarter, then you would get a different consequence. It wouldn't be progressive from there.
Okay. On the level 2 infractions for laptop damages, elementary school, what is withdrawal of privilege?
So at the elementary level, that is something like a student being given the privilege of taking the attendance sheet to the front office if there's a substitute, being the student helper in the classroom. A lot of times the withdrawal of privilege is, it goes back to what the behavior was when it comes to the misconduct. So if a student is being disruptive, and again, they have any sort of privilege in the class as a helper or anything along those lines, they may be taking that away. But again, it goes back to the behavior of what caused the misconduct to begin with.
Okay. I think that also needs something about money in that one there. And an elementary school child who is involved in a fight gets sent home for 2 days? Is that right?
Elementary school from, let me see, I'm in the
Level 3 infractions?
level 3 infraction. Yeah, if it's a level 3 infraction,
And then I have a question about that. So if Mark Seacrest is a kid sitting next to me and he starts beating me up, are we both in the fight? Or is he in the fight and he gets a 2-day suspension? Or if you can't decide, do I get one too, just because I just got beaten up and now I got to go home for 2 days?
No, so fighting is mutual. That's whenever two students engage in a mutual altercation. So if it's one-sided, then it would be a different infraction code that would be just for that student that was being the aggressor towards the other student. So at that point, we would consider other things, such as, let me see here, level 2.
So if Mark wails on me, then it's a level 2. But if I decide I've had enough and I hit him back, then I go home for 2 days.
If a student engages in an altercation, then at that point, everything is weighed when it comes to the evidence, the situation, how things occurred, and it could be that they're both mutually involved in a fight. If it's a student that, again, is just being the aggressor towards another student, there's a couple of different infractions that could happen. If we were to keep it at a level 3, that would be simple battery. If it, rises to that level. If it's a level 2, then that's where it could be, again, I was looking for it.
Inappropriate physical contact, scuffling is a level 2?
Yeah, it would be,
So my 5th time of scuffling, I would get an out-of-school suspension.
scuffling is typically for your, like, horseplay, or maybe just like a shove here and there, but it's not necessarily a fight. That is a bigger altercation.
Okay. And the same thing on the middle school and high school for the disrespect, level 1 disrespect and disrespect for other property. I think you need some language on the level 5, or the altercation, 5th referral that explains where you're going with it. And so I'm trying to understand the cell phone violation. So a cell phone infraction, if I'm in high school, it's the 3rd time that I get something more than you take it away from me? First time you take it away from me? Second time you take it away from me? 3rd time you take it away from me and I get a 1-day in-school suspension? The 4th time you take it away from me and I get another 1-day suspension? No, this is middle school. And then the 5th time you take it away and I get another one? Is that right? Is that what we're doing?
Yes, yeah, so as you can see, it's different between middle school, high school, and elementary school. If we're speaking specifically to high school, you see the progression there where the first time, if it's just a normal wireless infraction where a student just has it out, it's going to be confiscated, and it's going to be confiscated every time, but then it can escalate if it's the 3rd, 4th, or 5th time to a different consequence. If a student refuses to give up the cell phone to be confiscated, then that's whenever it turns into a wireless device, cell phone infraction defiance, and then that's whenever it would be a different consequence, because the student is not relinquishing the device.
Okay. And that's pretty much all I had here. I just had one comment that I think that my personal feeling is, I appreciate all that was done here, but I feel that if it is something that is disrupting the classroom, there's a difference between behavior that doesn't disrupt the learning environment and behavior that does disrupt the learning environment. Screaming at the teacher, throwing something, those type of things, I think disrupt a learning environment for everybody. I think being late to class or being in the wrong place when you're not disrupting, I think there's a difference between that. And I personally think that if you're disrupting the learning environment of other children, that your other students, that your consequences should be more severe. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Moriarty?
Okay, I will have much less questions than that, but on page 31, tobacco and vaping, and you changed the second offense from 5 days ISS to 3 days OSS. What was the thinking there?
So the schools gave feedback that they wanted the second offense to be stronger, just something that would deter students from wanting to do it again. Whenever we pulled data, we really didn't have that many students. I'm sorry, I'm trying to get to the page. 25.
Oh, okay, it says 31 on mine. It might be different.
We really didn't have that many students that had a second infraction. We actually only had 3 students that had 3 infractions for tobacco, and we had 10 students that had 2 infractions for tobacco. So it's really not too many students that really engaged in a second offense, but given the circumstances, they did want to increase the consequences to try and deter students from doing a second offense of tobacco or vaping.
Was there any that had a third offense?
There were some, yeah, there were 2 students that had a third offense.
Okay. And do you think that 3 days OSS is stronger than 5 days of ISS?
So at that point, what we looked at too was time away from classroom. Even though ISS is still in school, it's still away from the classroom itself. So we were also thinking about instructional time, trying to find a balance. So typically from a student perspective, from what they've shared, out-of-school suspension is seen as something that's tougher, harder, right, as a consequence on them than it is for in-school suspension. So again, we were weighing the what students perceive as a consequence with also time away from classroom.
Okay, I mean, just as someone who's served in this committee before and has talked with parents and stakeholders and students in this, the opinion that I had got was it was the opposite. That basically 5 days in school suspension, you're in school and having to go to school versus 3 days out of school, away from school, that they thought that the 5 days ISS was tougher, was the opinion I got. So I see the change you're trying to make, that to make it stronger. I think a lot of people could argue it would be the opposite.
Yeah, and I would definitely leave it to the pleasure of the board to decide what, we would put there as a consequence. This was just a recommendation from the school sites whenever we met with them.
Okay.
I would just say that it seems like it's working. 5 days of ISS is working because you don't have repeat offenders. I know I've heard from parents too that it's really difficult for them to manage their child if they are working families and their child's just home doing whatever they want to do for 3 days. It's, I don't think that's much of a punishment.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, maybe it is with their parents, but, I mean, Ms. Pritchett, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment, Ms. Roberts had made a comment regarding moving a child out of a school choice school back to their other school. That's not going to change the behavior of the student. So the intervention is more appropriate than putting them in their zone school, because they're going to have the same disruptions in that school. They have a problem if they get to that level. So I don't agree with changing language to move a child back to their zone school if they have repeated behavior problems.
Ms. Roberts?
That's in our choice policy now, that if you have, I think it's on all the choice forms, that if you have behavior issues, you can lose your choice assignment, so. Ms. Pritchett, I don't know what.
Then it doesn't really need to be put in the code of conduct, does it?
Well, we put other things that have to do with our policy so people know what it is.
Yes, I think there has to be a lot of discretion for removing a child, especially younger kids, from, because if they're, I'm thinking of tardies and absences when they don't necessarily control that. And would the problem be remedied? And that's what I think you have to make a judgment call. Would the problem be remedied if the child were plucked out of the school that they've been going to and put into a brand-new school? Would that remedy the problem of them being tardy? So I think there has to be some discretion on the part of the principal and whoever's making that decision, what's best for the child. And sometimes I think it's, an attempt to punish the parent and then the child's the one who suffers. So I think we have to we have to be delicate in those situations, which I know they are. Any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I just want to get clarification on the ISS-OSS. My thought would be to keep it the ISS if the board has consensus with that. The out-of-school suspension puts us in a situation where I agree the kids are at home and we have no control over the students when they're not with us. So preference would be to go back to what it was with the 5 days ISS, because we can do work with the students when they're with us for those 5 days. And just what I would like to see.
And I just have one additional comment about, especially for high school students, is really pushing when they're truant for that number of days. I know of at least 3 students that were in the very first semester over 40 days absent, and they were 15 years old. Like, they are 16 years old. I think we need to start pushing the driver's license issue, not the losing their license, because it's rampant since COVID. I mean, kids are just not coming to school, and, teachers, I know, are trying to be accommodating, but it's a real burden. And that's the other thing I think about out-of-school suspension for extended days. At least in-school suspension, their work is coming, trying to monitor it, and they're not as far behind when they get back because they're not doing their schoolwork while they're out-of-school suspension. So that's just some things to think about, but I really think we should start pursuing more students that are of driving age and revoking their license. If we don't start making some examples, this problem is going to continue. And we have to use the tools that we have, and we have that tool, and I think we should start using it more and consistently, obviously, across the board. I think once kids know that they may lose their license, they may turn things around. And those conversations have to happen leading up to, so there has to be a consequence early, and here's what's gonna happen on, how many days is it? In the 90 days, they can't miss more than 30 days, something like that?
Yeah, it's 15 days. At that point, they're considered truant, and then at that point, if it's within the 90 days, we can move forward with revoking a driver's license.
Yeah, so on day 5 that they're absent, those parents and that student need to know that on day 15, we're gonna start this action if this behavior doesn't stop.
Should that be included on page 8?
Yes. All right, any additional questions? Thank you all very much. I know this is a huge task.
Mr. Roscoe's done a great job. Lots of kudos to him. He's spent a lot of hours and months and time with our administrators and working on the final product. We would like to know direction from the board. Do you want this brought back with all of the updates to the next workshop, or updates and then put on for the next board agenda? What is your pleasure?
So I think you should, this is my personal opinion, I think you should make the updates and get a draft copy to the board as soon as possible, because I think sometimes 7 days, when it hits the agenda, if we get it for the first time, that's a very short time to review the entire agenda, plus a very comprehensive document like this. So if we could get the changes in advance of that as soon as they're ready, board members will have a time to look at it, make many additional recommendations to you all, which we can then incorporate at the next meeting. So I think this comes to a regular meeting. Is that okay with the board?
I'm just going to ask one more clarifying.
Sure.
June board meeting or July?
I think it needs to come to June.
Okay.
Don't
I just
you?
wanted to make sure. I do. We do.
I
We
mean,
just
I
wanted to make
think
sure.
July is cutting it close.
Okay.
Yeah.
We will have that done.
Okay, perfect, thank you. All right. Next up, we have our medical insurance health plan and funding strategy. Mr. Calderon.
Good afternoon. Madam Chair, members of the board, Superintendent Maine, Don Calderon, Director of Risk Management and Employee Benefits, the Martin County School District, and alongside me from the Garing Group, we have Gabrielle Swain, Benefits Consultant, and Dustin Keene, Senior Benefits Consultant and Vice President with the Garing Group. So as you may recall, you saw us quite often between the months of January through March. We were here at each board workshop and board meeting to discuss the medical insurance renewal with Cigna. And over the course of those meetings, there were several topics that came up that was outside of what we were there presenting for. And there was a mutual agreement between the board and staff and the superintendent that we would come back as soon as that medical insurance renewal was complete, open enrollment was complete, and we would come back and have a presentation and a discussion on those topics that we would going to be revisit for future consideration. And this is the future. We're here living in it right now. So this is mainly going to be Dustin and Gabrielle's presentation. And what we have done together as a team is written down all of the different topics and thoughts that have occurred during those months of January through March. And we've kind of done a brief presentation. And so the first topic, if you want to follow along, you should have handouts, is going to be covered by Dustin, and that is going to be the topic of a professional employer organization, also known as a PEO.
All right, good afternoon. I'll stay very high level, but if you have any questions, happy to go in at further detail. So, as Don mentioned, the first topic is professional employer organization, otherwise known as a PEO. What is this? This is when an employer outsources certain parts of their operations to a third-party entity, such as Paychex. So this is where you would outsource your HR services, your benefits, and your payroll. Typically, this is done by smaller employers. The reason is because there is a fee involved in this. Typically, it's a percentage of payroll. So it makes sense for smaller entities because they save on the personnel costs. But as you get larger, it often makes sense to do it in-house from an efficiency and a cost standpoint. So some of the things that you would lose in a PEO would be, one, plan design control. So you would outsource your benefits package, which would be canned programs with a certain carrier. So you would lose control on the design. You would also need to be accepted by a PEO, so they don't just allow everyone to come in. They would look at your risk and offer you to come in. The bigger thing that you would lose to take into consideration is customer service. So right now, employees, if they have questions on their benefits program, they reach out to your HR team and they get that concierge type of feel. Under a PEO, it would be calling into the PEO communications to get answers and questions dealt with appropriately. So that's the very high level. Typically, it's smaller entities, your size. We typically don't see. It's typically 100 employee size groups or less.
Any questions? I'm going to disagree with you a little bit because, yes, I think Paychex is a smaller company, but the ADPs of the world, do service large companies, and that it's more of a hybrid model where the companies maintain their HR function. The plan design control is what we are currently doing is plan designing because we can't negotiate a reasonable rate for our employees. And because of our losses. And the benefit of this is that you're going into a pool with lots of different people. So I disagree with you. I know there are some drawbacks to a PEO, but I do believe that it can work because of how our loss ratio, what we're experiencing is. I mean, we cannot get out from under a consistent rate increase, and our employees are suffering because of it. And it's because of the pool that we have. And to be part of a larger pool, I think would benefit us. But I can see there are definitely, the larger companies do also maintain their own HR department. They don't use an ADP or a payroll. They do outsource payroll, which is not a bad thing. But it is, HR functions typically do remain in the larger employers. Ms. Roberts?
Is there a way to test the water to see if there's any PEO that would be willing to accept us, so we would at least have some idea?
Yeah, we could definitely ask around and do some due diligence and test the market, if you will, on interest.
You know, and see what that looks like. You know,
Sure.
here's one that would, you know, in this model, here's company A, and you would maintain your own HR department. They would take over your payroll piece. And we shared your claim information with them. This is what their plan looks like. This is what their health insurance plan looks like, and
Yep.
whether they said yes or no, or what they, but I think if we can do that, I think that would be.
I mean, I think we should explore it enough, not just look at the downside of what we think it might be. And what I can tell you is that you can negotiate with Paychex and you can negotiate with ADP. You do not have to accept just what a traditional PEO might be. You can keep your HR internal. You do not have to go full into their computerized system for evaluations and all the HR services. You can maintain that and still get the benefit. And I will tell you, just from my personal experience with the PEO, the biggest benefit is the insurance. And when you can, and I don't know, because we might not be acceptable because of it, you know? I don't know.
We won't know till we ask.
Yeah. Okay, next up, self-insured 101.
All right, self-insured 101. So as you know, some of the board members know, we've been talking about this for probably over 10 years, maybe close to 15
Probably more.
years. And what I'll kind of start off the conversation with, there's no right or wrong answer here. It's really a fit. It's really a risk tolerance conversation. We have clients that are 30,000, 40,000 employees that's fully insured. We have clients that are 100, 200 employees that are self-insured. So again, there's no right or wrong reason. High level, the differences of fully insured versus self-insured. Fully insured, which you are today, you pay a premium to the carrier, which is rates times your enrollment. Whatever your claims are, doesn't matter from your perspective because the carrier pays those claims during the year. Now at renewal, they underwrite the rates again. It might go up or down based on your claims. Self-insured, you would hire a TPA to administer your plan. You would rent their network. They adjudicate the claims. You hire a stop-loss vendor to protect you from any large claimant activity, which we would set the threshold based on your risk. And then you would pay the claims as they come in bi-weekly or on a monthly basis. So the big differentiator there is you pay your claims as they come. So beginning of the year, an actuary sets your rates based on the risk. If claims come in better than expected, you save. If they come in higher than expected, you pay the larger amount. So the biggest differentiator, again, is the claims variability during the year. If we look at the pros and cons of that, the obvious one is cash flow, or you save if claims are bad or are good. The obviously con is if the claims are bad, you pay more than expected. Under self-insured, you would have to implement a reserve, which is under the state of Florida, OIR, Office of Insurance Regulation, equates to a minimum of 60 days of claims. So that will obviously go up and down based on your risk.
What would our, in a typical year, what, 60 days of claims for us?
I believe it's around 3 million. I
Okay.
don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but that number is
okay.
in my head from prior meetings. So looking at the past decade or so, the reason the district hasn't gone the self-insured route is because of how you currently fund or budget for your health benefits. So currently, as you know, you budget $6,500 per employee per year. Under a self-insured arena, there would be the risk that in a given year, you would have to pay more than $6,500 per employee per year. If you do pay more, then you got to take it from your reserve. So the conversations that we've had in the past is if you were to go this route, we would try to build up more than 60 days to give you more of a cushion just in case claims were bad. So again, not a right or wrong kind of discussion here. I think the 6,500, the fully insured model, has worked for you well in the past because it gives you the confidence to budget elsewhere, right, and fund other things that you need to fund. And it gives you the flat line 6,500 per employee per month.
Oh, Ms. Pritchett, Ms.
So
Yes, sorry.
if we went to self-insured, we would no longer be giving employees $6,500 a year, correct?
You could still budget 6,500 per
But
employee per
we
year.
wouldn't be giving our employees $6,500 a year on top of their salary. We would be using that money for self-insured.
Do you want to answer that? You want to?
I'll do my best to attempt to
We would
answer. It might be
yeah.
more of a Carter question. So right now, the board contributes $6,500. That's their board contribution to the overall medical insurance premium. The rest of the premium is made up through employee deductions, okay? That's something that the board has to bargain if you were to do more or less than $6,500 per year. But there still would be a board contribution. It's just like Dustin said, how the claims come in, the board is responsible for paying those claims monthly. So, for example, March claims came in at 122% loss ratio. So the bill is due, the board will have to pay that amount.
So we would typically only be collecting enough for 100%,
Correct.
but we would be on the hook for the 22%.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct, and that loss ratio is just claims to premium. So on top of that, you'd have to pay admin and stop loss.
Right.
So right now, you're paying the lower amount, self-insured, you'd have to pay the higher amount.
Ms. Russell?
I just wanted to know, and you probably do not have this answer now, but over the last 5 years, if we would have been self-insured, and with all the high claims that we've had each year, would we be in the black or the red today?
You would be in the red. And I can say that confidently because you've been over 100% on average, more so of those 5 years. But we could give you an exact answer if you want it.
And I guess at that point, what reserve level do you feel sufficient enough to absorb a high claims year, or if you have multiple claims year?
So we typically like to recommend twice the minimum, so 120 days. So roughly 6 million based upon your claims experience.
So I know Highlands County was self-insured, and they went from a surplus to a negative balance, forcing the district to transfer approximately $8 million. Then you had in 2016, Indian River County also dealt with the same thing, and they had to take out of their general fund approximately about $7 million. So I just want to make sure that whatever decisions we're making, if we're in a constant loss ratio, how is this going to benefit us long-term? I don't want to put us in a bad financial position because we're trying to cut costs, because at the end of the day, we won't cut costs.
And it's a fair question.
Well, and Carter can school us all on what happened in Indian River County since he was the CFO at the time. And, I mean, it's a gamble. Dr. Moriarty?
Yeah, I think Ms. Russell kind of hinted at where I was going as well, was a reserve, but what number could you really put out there? 10 million, 12 million, regardless of what number you put out there, we're gonna cut into that number and go down from that number. So I know that people are looking at a self-insured as possibly an out, but in our current situation, it doesn't help us at all, because let's say we have 20 million in reserve. We're still gonna cut into that reserve and work it down to next to nothing. So there's really no reserve amount that would be safe for us unless we change the overall health of our employees to stop going over 100% more times than not. We'll just continue to lose and eat away at whatever reserve we have under the current situation. Now, if the health changes of employees, then that could be a discussion. But right now, there's really no reserve that's a safe amount for us.
All great points, and I would just add, typically, looking at some of our clients that we've transitioned to fully insured to self-insured, the best timing to do that is when there is a negative increase on the table under a fully insured arrangement, because in that instance, you can keep rates 0%, builds a buffer, employees are typically happy with a 0, and you get that buffer and a head start. And I would say you're far from that environment, so our recommendation would be to, again, kind of, leave this to the future, reassess it. Maybe when your claims loss ratio gets a little bit better, we can have that.
In all the years that I've been here, there's never been a time that's been a good time. I mean, and we do have years, do have years where we're not 100% or more. But it's not enough, not enough.
Yeah, Mrs. Powers, and I think you're right. We used to have years where we were below the loss ratio that would have called for an increase, and we actually got a decrease. And then part of the ways that we have been able to build that surplus at $4.3 million, I think we have, is through those good years where we were in pro-share agreements, we were getting money back, things were good. But we haven't been in that situation the last few years. And we've gotten 2 months of claims in from Cigna since we last saw you here on March 24th. And like I said, March was 122% loss ratio, April was 105. So year to date, we're at 102 with 2 months left for this 12 months.
Next.
Any other questions? Okay.
Did you have one, Ms. Roberts? I'm sorry. I got to get used to looking at this thing. You go ahead.
Thank you. So just so I understand this correctly, I think I do, but correct me if I'm wrong. So if you had a reserve and you ate into the reserve, right? So let's say you had a $20 million reserve, great reserve. And because the amount that you're collecting in premiums is less than what you need to pay the bill, you've eaten into the reserve by $2 million. What that means is that the next time you set your premiums, it's whatever the premium was plus the $2 million, correct?
You would have that flexibility. You could build in the reserve accumulation or.
Right, but I mean, you would have to, you would not start with a $20 million reserve and eat it down to nothing. You would, if you said as a board, we want to try to maintain a $20 million reserve, you would be passing that back and saying, okay, well, we need to recollect the reserve. We ate up $2 million of the reserve. It needs to be added on to the premiums that we're collecting so that we can have that back, correct? Okay, thank you.
Which is what happens every year when we go out to bid with our insurance
Yeah.
companies. That's exactly what they are doing. And then we, all right, let's find another strategy.
Okay.
Yep.
Come on.
Well,
give
that
us
goes
one,
into the next
Dustin.
slide, cost mitigation strategies.
Yeah, so we look at kind of the three main buckets of how to lower costs, right? You have obviously a healthier population, what Dr. Moriarty mentioned, which you can generate from wellness-targeted approaches, managing chronic conditions, as well as, on-site, near-site health centers, which we'll talk about after this. Second is plan modification, so the obvious one is changing deductibles and copays, not popular, but it is a lever to pull to reduce costs. Certain network steerage, pharmacy changes, things like that. The third bucket would be employee funds, so giving employees funds to help offset their medical expenses, such as what the board has done through HSA contributions, wellness incentives, and there's also other types of surcharges for tobacco, spousal carve-outs, things like that, that would also incentivize employees to choose healthy lifestyle conditions. So these are the 10,000-foot level kind of strategies.
So can I,
Sure.
so I 100% think we should go to a tobacco-free, workplace. The city of Stuart does it, and they saw a significant decrease in their medical insurance. I believe that the sheriff's office does it as well. But I'm curious about, I think we should do that. I think that and then we can offer tobacco cessation programs as part of the rollout, and people can quit smoking, because so many of the chronic illnesses are caused by smoking and vaping and all the things, and any kind of tobacco product. And so I'm a fan of that. I think we should offer the support to our employees to stop using tobacco products, but again, that's a life choice. If they choose not to, then maybe, I don't know what the consequence, they can't be on our insurance, or there's a surcharge.
Surcharge, yeah. Martin Sheriff and Stewart, they both implemented a surcharge or a discount, depending on how you look at it, that if you are a non-tobacco user, you pay a lesser premium.
Yes.
They both have access to a clinic, so they can do testing. Without a clinic, I'd recommend an affidavit type of process where they sign a form stating they're non-tobacco. If they're tobacco, you have to make them, or you give them the option to go through a cessation program in order to meet the incentive as well.
Now, how do they test their employees? They do it annually? Like, do they just do like a oral specimen swab, like that kind of thing?
You could do blood, you could do oral, you could do many different ways. Yeah, there's different options.
Okay.
The cotinine test is the most predictable.
Say that again?
I think it's cotinine is the chemical that tests for all types of tobacco.
I would be weary of the affidavit, but, I mean, some people do. Back in my underwriting days, I remember if you put that you had oh no, do you smoke? Well, I had a cigar when my baby was born. Smoker. It's like, so, but would be leery without being able to prove.
It would just be a cost.
Yeah.
You'd have to budget for it.
Yeah.
So we could generate a proposal, if you will, on kind of what it would cost, what it would look like, all the different moving parts for your consideration.
Okay. And then spousal surcharges, tell me about that besides smoking
Yeah,
or
so
tobacco?
this is mostly in the private sector, but it's working its way in the public sector. And how this would look is if a spouse had access to an employer plan through their employer, so a health plan through their employer, they could not join your plan. It would also be an affidavit type of arrangement. So if they didn't have access, they can join your plan. If they did have access, they can't join your plan.
Well, I have noticed, just from my own personal experience, my husband is self-employed, so he's on my insurance, but insurance companies are, before they process claims, are asking, is your spouse employed? Does he have access to insurance before they will process the claim? So it's interesting that it is shifting so that we're not over-covering, I guess, or?
Yeah. What I would kind of highlight here and caution the board is we would probably want to do a survey on neighboring entities on who you recruit against, because if you're doing it but the entities you're recruiting against don't, that might be a differentiator.
Well, and I believe like St. Lucie County only, they have the high deductible plan employee only, right? Or do they have the option to cover?
They have options, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
But these are all like, oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, these are all great conversations to have now, because we could come back, throughout the early part of the 26, 27 year, and the Garin Group could come back, bring you your options. So that way, we have the opportunity to discuss this with the insurance committee, and then also to do proper education, so we don't just, dump any decision on our employees during the 2-week period of open enrollment. So the fact that we're having these conversations early on, I think will be beneficial, whatever the board decides to go.
Perfect. Vice Chair Moriarty.
Thank you
I'm
for
going to read from
recognizing
my
me.
screen now, sorry.
Thank you for
Just-
seeing that I had my hand up.
Just hit me.
So, guys, the number one thing on this page that I want to really drive home is the wellness incentives and getting more people to participate in these incentives. Because we can have every creative opt-out but we need a healthier population, and we need more people to participate in these wellness programs. And whether it's, I don't know if you can give a credit for people for different weight loss goals. Chair Powers had mentioned the smoking. We have got to get a healthier population and get them active in their exercise goals, things like that.
Yes, I'm in agreement with that. And we've had these discussions at the workshops and meetings, January through March, and our staff has gone ahead and made a big change in our wellness program for the 26-27 year. So we're kind of prioritizing Cigna's well-being solution, which will give the opportunity to all employees that are covered under one of the district's 3 medical plans, the opportunity to earn up to an extra $350 through Cigna by completing these wellness goals. So we are still going to be using those wellness funds to help pay for Peloton and Omada, and to wrap up our contract with Headspace. But the priority of our wellness program will be the Cigna Wellbeing Solution Program. So we just dotted all the i's, crossed the t's. Superintendent signed the agreement with Quest Diagnostics to have biometric screenings there any time of the year, rather than waiting for us to come out in the spring. So we hear that. We've made a big change. And so we're doing everything we can on the wellness side to do that.
Okay, because participation traditionally has been somewhat low in these programs, right?
Well, it's tough to say. We have offered over the years so many different type of wellness initiatives throughout the year, and through our on-site wellness ambassadors, we've incentivized them. So we're really putting the onus on the employees. Like, if you want to be rewarded for being healthy and to go through the Wellbeing Solution Program, you're going to earn up to $350. So, there's only so much that we can do. I mean, we can't force people to do a wellness program. It is voluntary, but we can incentivize it as much as we can. This year, we chose $350. We'll see how this first year goes, and we can go up to more. I mean, we're doing everything we can to try and get people more engaged with their lifestyles.
Great, okay, thank you.
choices.
How do we see what you're doing? Like, where those incentives are? Because I don't get them in my email or anything. Like, where do I find, like, the programs that are happening?
Sure. So we have dedicated, in the past, we've had dedicated wellness ambassadors at each site and department. So you probably may receive the emails from Joyce Topping. She was our SDO, District Building Wellness Ambassador for the 25-26 year, but each school has their own. And so we communicate to those ambassadors a couple times a month, and they're responsible for doing that and sharing that. But then we're also out and about at the school sites. So this year, once the teachers come back in August, they're going to be welcomed with the information that the wellness program has changed, and we already have plans with our HR leaders to go out there and to make sure that they're welcomed back at school, and to let them know of all of the options that are in front of them, so.
Okay. So I would like to appoint Dr. Moriarty as our wellness ambassador for the board. So if you could let him know so he can share with us what's going on.
I graciously accept.
Okay. Just so you know, for the 26-27 year, it's going to pay $0, but you'll do it just to feel good.
What? All right. Next.
Okay, so the next topic is carving out the high deductible health plan. Before I let Dustin talk about that, I just wanted to let you know that the last 2 months of claims have been very strong for the high deductible health plan. And we are at a 55% loss ratio year to date, which is very strong for the high deductible health plan. And then last month, we had presented an HR board update, an update with regard to our open enrollment. So overall, 89% of our employees did stay in the same plan. However, we did have 119 employees change their elections to the high deductible health plan. So we're almost at a 60-40 split now. So for those that have been on the board for many years, you know, we used to have 5, 10, 15% of our employees on the high deductible health plan. Now we're up to about 38, 39%, almost 40%, which is great. And then we typically see additional enrollment in the high deductible health plan around September and October, when those employees that are hired in the summer come on board and their benefits go into effect the first of the month following a 30-day waiting period. So we anticipate additional enrollment in the high deductible health plan.
All right, so one of the questions from the board was, you know, would it make sense to carve out the high deductible health plan to a separate carrier, a separate plan? And how would that compare to our current arrangement? So this is more a kind of an exercise of visual on why we wouldn't recommend doing that. And the reason is because that high deductible health plan running at a 55% is bringing down your total combined loss ratio to 100%. So if you were to carve that out on its own, yes, that plan would be rated very good. However, the other two plans, those loss ratios combined would go up to 113%, and you would lose leverage with the carrier. Those premiums would go up while the high deductible down. Most of your enrollment sits in the HMO, so most of your employees would be adversely affected there. And then big picture, combining those two, you'd probably be where you are now, combining them. It would just be more spread out. So again, we'd recommend keeping the high deductible in because that is your leverage in negotiations with your carrier each year.
What about getting rid of the PPO altogether?
Yeah, and this is also an exercise we've done over the years. The board has asked us to kind of run this exercise. Every year that we've asked the carrier to remove the PPO, it's actually increased the premium on the other two plans because those claimants go somewhere, and typically they're higher claims activity. So the recommendation has always been keep the PPO, grandfather it, doesn't adversely affect these people, but raise the premium as needed over here in the PPO. So we're happy to run that exercise every year, but we are kind of at the mercy of the carrier to underwrite those plans. Did I answer your question there?
Yeah, just gotta get healthy.
Yep.
I don't know. Oh, my gosh.
All right, last topic, if there's,
Ms. Roberts.
oh, I'm sorry.
Any other questions or
Ms.
comments on
Roberts,
this?
oh, my gosh. Ms. Pritchett first.
The 92 that are in the grandfathered, can you kind of guess how many more years before they're gone? Meaning gone from the plan? Does that make sense?
Or they make the decision to move.
No, what I'm saying is, we're not accepting any new PPOs, correct?
Correct. So
But the people that are on it can stay on it. Is that for a very long time in the future that,
well, so the board decision in March of 2024 was to grandfather those already in that plan and allow no new enrollment as of 7/1/24.
Right.
So the employees that are still in that plan were in it back in March of 2024. We didn't even allow any people to enroll in it for open enrollment that year.
Right.
So we're down to about 92 people. So as those.
like, will it end, like, those 92 people, I'm guessing, are of more of a senior in the district?
I couldn't tell you that right now. I mean,
Okay.
I could
guess
bring
I'm
that
trying to
back.
figure out, if we come to a place where there are no longer anyone in the PPO, are we still going to be tagged by the insurance company that we have to have a PPO? So the only way we get rid of the PPO is that those 92 people either switch to something else
Or they leave the district.
or they leave the district. And I was trying to figure out how long before that could possibly happen.
What I can do is I could come back and let you know what their average year of service is. We could probably do that. That's feasible, but I wouldn't have a crystal ball as to know when they would leave the district. But anytime an employee in one of those, in the PPO plan makes a change in open enrollment, they can't come back to the PPO. And then same thing, if they leave the district and then they come back a year or 2 or 5 months down the road, they can't go back to that. So it's really just as they leave employment here in the district, they fall off.
Vice Chair Moriarty,
It
sorry.
says 559 lives is below most standalone minimums. What's the standalone minimum?
So what that is the number of employees in a plan that a carrier would write on its own.
Yeah, how many is that?
Differs by carrier, but typically to be fully creditable, it's around 600-700 employees, but it differs by carrier.
Okay.
Maybe we can just put this group in the PEO.
All right, so we only need like another 100 employees in the high deductible plan to be able to be at the minimum to be carved out, right?
Potentially, again, it would have to be asked at the time of a RFP per carrier. I did survey some carriers, including your incumbent, and they would not quote on standalone, how it is now. Might change in the future, but as it stands now.
Why wouldn't they quote on that?
Just because it's below the minimum.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. We're close though, so.
All right.
Okay, topic 4.
Oh, Ms. Roberts.
Thank
Sorry.
you. Appreciate it. So we've taken the carrier's recommendation to not get rid of the PPO. That doesn't mean that we can't get rid of the PPO, correct?
Correct.
So we could say we wanted to get rid of the PPO. And that brings up another question, but knowing that, and let's assume that everybody's about the same, that the PPO's running at 116%, but the HMO's running at 113. And realizing that, yeah, they would have more claims, but if they were in the HMO, if their claims were similar, it would really just be a penalty for the first year when they're projecting their migration, correct?
Correct.
And then we would really know what it looked like after the first year. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
And then my second question is, I know that because we do multi-checks, that we're in a position where when they're doing their computation of what they think the claims are going to be for the year, they're estimating several months because we've got to get our ducks in a row, we've got to get open enrollment done so we can then do the multi-checks, et cetera. And we have some months in there that that they're guessing what our claims are going to be. And we don't really know what our claims are going to be, so they're basing their premiums on that, correct? So can you explain to us the multi-check? Is everybody else doing multi-checks in the world, or is this just an anomaly in Martin County?
I would have to defer that question to our HR department, Jeff Raymond, who's probably not prepared to be on deck here.
Thank you, Don. Yeah, I mean, I could research it. I've worked in other districts. They do the multi-checks, but I have to give you concrete information as to how unique it is to Martin County School District.
Carter, does Indian River do multi-checks?
Yes, ma'am, for several years.
And Gabrielle, can you figure out for the last couple of years when they've estimated whether their estimate has been right or wrong? Just so we know, when they're saying, well, based on our estimates for the months that we have in there, we think your loss ratio is going to be 114%. And did it really turn out to be the 114%, or was it something else?
Yes, we can look at their projected
than
Yeah,
what it actually
okay,
was.
thank you.
Okay. Okay, next.
Okay, topic 4.
All right, topic 4. And this has also been discussed for many years, and it is something that is a very viable model in the healthcare world to try to bend that curve of inflation. So there are multiple models, if you will, of a clinic. High level, the two main ones is on-site and near-site. So on-site clinics are those that are, as the model, the name describes, on-site. That's where you would have your own building. You would build it out medical grade to house staff to perform medical, acute, chronic type of procedures, as well as dispense medications. And you could also do x-ray and lab draws and things like that. Near site is where you would either rent or purchase a building or participate in an already established provider group to tap into the model for those services. Now, typically, these health centers pair well with self-insured. The reason being is because any medical procedures and prescriptions that are avoided out of the health plan, right? Those under a self-insured remit, you would save those claims real time. Fully insured, since the carrier is paying the claims, any cost avoided is really being worked into your renewal calculation, which you'll save in year 2, year 3. So that is the typical model. That doesn't mean that is the only model. So I know this might be another discussion on its own. It is possible in a fully insured arrangement. We would just have to get creative and discuss strategy on how it would be funded year to year so that we ensure the longevity of the clinic.
Ms. Roberts?
So I have 2 things. So can you give us some idea that if we, let's say if the board decided, okay, forget the self-insured thing, we're just not going to do it. We've got 4.3 sitting over there. So we can utilize, if the board agreed, you could utilize the 4.3 to pay your clinic costs, because your clinic costs, not just the cost for the clinic, but the cost for everything that comes with it, the utilization of the clinic, is something that you're not going to see an advantage of in the current premium structure, because the premium structure is set without any history of a clinic, so they would assume that there's nothing happening with the clinic, so you wouldn't see anything, so you would have to absorb what that cost would be. I would imagine that you can look at what the claims have been. Somebody can look and see what the claims have been and figure out, well, okay, if you had a clinic that did X, Y, and Z, that you would have, it would cost you X number of dollars, then Gabrielle would be able to say, and it would make your loss ratio change to this, if I took those claims out of it in order to do it. I would then assume that if you moved forward after that first year, and they give you the renewal thing, that you could take the renewal rate and you could add a piece, and let's assume that renewal rate is down now, okay, because you paid all those pieces that you were, during the year that were happened at the clinic. And if you said, okay, well, for use of the clinic, I need to take your premium and I need to add X number of dollars to it, so instead of your bill being down, instead of your monthly payment for your insurance being down, it would maybe stay the same in order to capture that piece in order to do it. But I'm sure that you can do that at some point. And then the second point is, so can you give us any information? I think the county is building something and what that looks like with a shared facility.
Sure, yeah. So currently, the county, the sheriff, the city of Stewart are in an interlocal agreement with Employee Wellness, Treasure Coast Urgent Care, Primary Care. That's an already established practice. The general public, right, shares in that model. They just tap into it. There is a plan from the county's perspective to build their own clinic. I believe they have the site. They just haven't approved the plans and the cost, but they're close. I would say they're 2 to 3 years out on building that. The hopes in talking to them on that is to bring in the sheriff, the city, if they participate. I know they'd be willing to talk, I'm sure, with the board. But in that model, you can arrange many different pricing models. You can arrange it where Your employees, if they go to the clinic, you're then billed per visit type. For example, a medical visit is $100. Ancillary visit, which would be like lab draws, prescriptions, would be $50. That's just one model. So it's clean, it's predictable, based on utilization. The other model would be pro rata share of the bills. So based on your enrollment and the overall share of the enrollment. So let's say you're 25% of the total enrollment, essentially you would share 25% of the monthly costs. So there's different models that would all have to be worked out, you know, in different arrangements, but just know that is something coming in the next
But
few
there's
years.
several years out in doing
Correct,
that.
correct.
And so, based on what you're saying, there is the ability then to go to, say, urgent care or something and make an agreement with them where you would say, okay, we want to utilize you as a clinic for these type visits. We will pay you X number of dollars. For these type visits, we will pay you this number of dollars, correct? And then we would be able to push out to our people, hey, if you use this, this is the advantage for using that. Is that right?
Yes, and I think that would be an attractive option for our employees because it has nothing to do with who the carrier is. Who the carrier is really doesn't matter. It's getting a doctor, getting to see somebody, getting to see a provider. It's part of the reason why our teledoc program and telemedicine has, the engagement has risen over the years is because people can't wait 10, 12 days to see a doctor, and having the ability to possibly partner with a local partner, another public entity, have that synergy there with the Garin Group because they are also their broker as well, I think would be an attractive option for our employees and their covered dependents, that they would have somewhere local within Martin County, within Stewart to go see.
So when you push it out and they're using their loss ratio numbers, is it possible to say to whoever's bidding the plan, we're going to take away, we want you to bid on this insurance, but we will take away all, say, just pick one, blood draws. We will take away all blood draws. So all the information you have from blood draws from last year, you will no longer have claims for blood draws because we will contract separately for those on the side. And we know we've had X number of them in the last year, the year before, et cetera, so we know what our cost is, then turn around and go to a private provider and say, can we buy some capacity for this? Is that?
Potentially. I mean, we could always go to the table and negotiate it, whether they come or not would be,
Yeah.
you know, but we could definitely have those conversations, yes.
Why wouldn't we just negotiate with our insurance carrier to accept the reimbursement rate of for certain things at this clinic, blood draws, whatever?
Sure.
And then they just pay? and we-
Yeah, but I
we
have a
kind of
feeling,
get
they like to lump it all together because then it gets lost in the minutia and they're not,
But we're managing the cost. We're still managing the cost because it's an agreed-upon reimbursement for a set number of services, like,
sure, but so like right now, when they're saying we will pay X number of dollars for a blood draw, right? That we haven't said to anybody, hey, I'm gonna go to the Seacrest clinic and make all my, any blood draw that goes to the Seacrest clinic is 50% of what it normally would be, because he knows he's getting my volume of business. Because right now, since they can go anywhere to get it,
Right.
there's no negotiated rate for that.
right, but if we went to that model, we would negotiate with our carrier to say, it's going to be, this blood draw is going to be free to the employees, and this is the negotiated rate that you're going to be reimbursed. And that would all be taken into account into the premium amount, right?
So fully insured arrangements, they won't do custom networks. Self-insured, there is the opportunity for that. But fully insured, based upon their contracts with provider groups, they have to keep everything fair.
Yeah,
which
so I
they-
can go to any one of 6 places to get my blood draw that have 6 different prices.
You can go anywhere.
Yeah, but I mean, in the network, there might be 6 places that I could get this done with 6 varying prices. Whereas if I did a bulk arrangement at the Seacrest Clinic, I might be able to get a discount, right?
One of the things we did not talk about was the hybrid self-insured, kind of that hybrid, not self-insured, but not fully insured. Because I know years ago, we did consider that. But at the time, we were not in a financial situation. I think we were new to the board. We were building up our reserve because of what had happened in previous boards. So we were never in the financial position, I don't think, to go that route. But are we now? Could we, like, what would be our investment, our reserve to do something like that? And would it be impactful for our employees?
Yeah, it's a great thought, and I would say to give you real concrete data to kind of make that call, we would request an option at renewal. Cigna has a really good option. They have a minimum premium option where it's a hybrid. It gives you the max liability as fully insured, but if your claims come in better, you save real time. So it pairs well with clinics because as you save money, you're paying lower claims. Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office has that arrangement. They have minimum premium with clinics, and it works great. So we can explore that at renewal and do the pros and cons.
Dr. Moriarty, Vice Chair Moriarty.
Anyway, yeah, so basically, with the fully insured model, this on-site or near-site model really doesn't save us much, because we're gonna be paying out to utilize that urgent care or whatever. But if we have a hybrid model or a fully self-insured model, then those savings could actually benefit us, because people would then have a place to go, and rather than going to like the ER, if they have, I can't get into a doctor, I'll just go to the emergency room and rack up a big bill there, because I'm on an HMO plan that it won't cost me, all that much. So, but we need to be either a hybrid or self-insured is my question, right?
You could go fully insured, it's just you won't see the savings real time. You
Okay.
would see the savings
When you
year
could-
two.
for renewals.
Because
year
your claims
two.
would be lower,
Right,
so loss ratio goes down, renewal gets better.
okay. So like the Chair Powers, I would be interested in knowing more about the hybrid model then.
Absolutely.
And I just think, Dr. Moriarty, that I think we should explore all of our options for cost mitigation strategies. And even if it is possibly a fully insured clinic that we have access to, while, like Dustin said, it wouldn't save immediately, it could put us in a little bit better of a negotiation stance with the Garing Group, with carriers for renewals. Because you saw, like in the first year, like we, after year one, we had a 10% not to exceed. Okay, thank God we had that not to exceed, because we really should have had an 19, 20% increase. But whatever we can do maybe to chip away at an increase, I think it would be smart to just consider it down the road.
All right, and then we'd have to put out like an RFP to clinics to see about who would want to participate with that?
You could, or you could piggyback. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do it. We kind of know who the players are. We would first identify the model you wanted to use, right? So if you didn't have your own space you wanted to build out, you don't have that.
Okay.
We needed to tap into an already established practice. That narrows down the players in your area that plays.
Okay.
If it's down to one, piggybacking direct contracting is easiest, but if there's multiple, we would do an RFP.
Okay.
Well, and ensuring that they have the capacity to take on 1,300 or 2,000 employees.
Absolutely.
1,800 on the plan.
1,800.
Typically, you would make the clinic available to employees and their dependents as long as they are on the health plan. That would give you the biggest ROI. And just a last note on the hybrid account. Under Florida Blue, you were technically hybrid. You had a pro-share agreement.
Yes, that's right.
So we could always negotiate with Cigna, whoever the carrier is, that same arrangement where if claims run better than expected, you get the share back.
We have that at 100%.
I think, is it 100% now?
We
So-
we negotiated the 100% with Cigna currently.
So it is baked in. It's just not at the forefront of
Just-
seeing that just yet.
We're just not getting it.
Correct. But that would give you that share, just in case we did see savings through the clinic.
Yeah, that's kind of how we got the insurance money.
Yeah,
That we have
that's primarily how
reserve.
you got up to the 4.3, yeah.
Okay. Summary.
So-
Unless did you want to go over any of this other stuff? We kind of went over
A
all
lot of
this.
words. Summarize this. PEO, we'll explore it a little bit further to get some market checks and some feels out there. Self-insured, not a recommendation at this time. Same with carving out the high deductible. With the health center, I think it warrants more discussion, and we talked about some things that we'll develop behind the scenes and come back to the board for some more data.
So when will we go out to bid again to get next year, for next fiscal year, right? We'll go out to bid and we can get the hybrid model?
If we go to
Right, so staff depends on the board to provide direction. In the previous renewal, in the previous bid, the board allowed the Garin Group to do the bid on behalf of the district. I believe we still don't have a purchasing director in place, so I would recommend letting the Garin Group do that. But moving forward, as long as the board directs staff to do that, we can go ahead and go that route.
Or when I say go out to bid, I didn't mean bid out everything. I mean do a full RFP. I meant get a bid for the hybrid, understanding what that's gonna look like, getting a cost for us to consider. And also the pros and cons, obviously, because I think that's probably gonna be our most realistic option if we are gonna make a change.
Right, so just to make sure I'm understanding correctly, I think what you're asking is for the Garin Group to go to Cigna a little bit later in the summer, early fall, and start getting those quotes back. Typically at that point, October, November time, we will come back to the board, give you what those options are, and then if it was, to your liking, you could direct staff and the Garin Group to continue negotiating with them. If it was something that you felt like needed to be put out to bid for the medical insurance and pharmacy, then they would take a look at other carriers.
Can we also take a look at our claims and tell us all of those things that people would be going to a clinic? Obviously, those big claims are probably not going to be popping in at the clinic. But what would that look like, and what percentage of our claims would we benefit by having a clinic, I guess is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
we could just eliminate the people going to an emergency room. and
Right.
go to the clinic instead.
That would save us money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could definitely look at that, and, something else to keep in mind is, we look at utilization a lot with new clinics, and typically there's a year ramp up before we're fully optimized. We look at 75% capacity utilization as like the optimal, you're getting the most ROI. What that means is, out of the available appointments, 75% of those appointments are being used, so you're getting your money's worth. Typically, when you start, it's 30-40%, and it gradually grows over time through word of mouth. So we'd have to kind of take a look at that, because day one, you wouldn't get full usage. You got to get employees used to it and incentivize them. So there is a ramp up, so we can look at all of those moving parts and give you a forecast.
And then I would also want to know the timeline, when we would need to start if we did decide to contract with a clinic, someone local that is already offering these services. What that might look like. Can we maybe talk to the county and the city and the fire rescue to see what they're doing? Because I know I do know the county uses a local company, and they're expanding, I guess. They've just moved into a new building.
Today, I
So,
think, actually.
yes.
Today, actually.
Yes, yes. So kind of what that would look like, and how much time would we need if we were going to do something like that? Is that 1 year out? Could we initiate something, maybe not this year, but next plan year? Is that feasible? But we would have to, when would we need to start that process?
Yeah.
Just in case we want to,
We could put that together.
so we don't miss a deadline.
And I'd say it's a little bit more flexible when you're tapping into an already established, because you're not having to worry about recruiting staff, and it would just be more of a conversation of, do they have the capacity to
Yeah.
absorb a group the size of you?
Sure. Vice Chair Moriarty?
And I just want to talk about RFP one more time, because is it true if you go out for an RFP too quickly, like too often, that's actually also a negative thing as well? Because we just did it a year and a half ago, so we don't want to just keep going out for constant RFPs. Like, that gives us a weaker position. Is that correct?
Typically, correct.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Changing carriers every 2 years is
Yeah.
expensive.
Bad news.
And it's very expensive and labor-intensive for our employees, too. Ms. Roberts?
So, and as you get us this information back, can you also talk about, as far as a clinic goes, the timing of a clinic? So knowing that we have the rates in place for this next school year, if we did strike a deal with the clinic to do something, say, starting in January, what it would end up doing is it would drive our loss ratio down. So even though we're paying the higher number, I would imagine that we would see a better loss. Is that right, Gabrielle?
Eventually, the idea is that it would be a lower rate than
Yeah.
the rate that you're currently at. It would take some time for that to actually.
Some time for it to trickle down, but I mean, at least you would start to see some utilization and maybe drive.
And when you're fully insured, you don't get as detailed information as we could for self-insured, but we can get utilization on your current labs and try
Okay,
to see if we can get some average cost of what it currently is
okay,
from Cigna.
thank you.
Well, and if we could do it, something like that in January, it would be nice, because then we could start the ramp up that instead of waiting a whole nother year to do that. But, and also like a really good marketing campaign to our employees, letting them know what's available, where, and, yeah, savings. Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate that presentation. We have no school board policies open to the board. Ms. Russell, do you have anything? Ms. Roberts? Vice Chair Moriarty?
I just want to congratulate all of our graduates, and a great job by all of the staff and the superintendent and his team, putting on some great graduations. It's always a fun time of year to participate with, and with our school board members, and it was a great grueling week, and a big congrats to all of our graduates. They did a great job.
Thank you. Ms. Pritchett? I just will say happy summer, everyone. I hope you all are able to enjoy some well-deserved time off and a little bit of downtime, and we'll see you in a couple weeks. Thank you.